I feel like I said it last week and I said it the week before, but this week was actually the craziest weekend of the college football season. There were a number of upsets. Not only were conference championship scenarios completely changed, the college football playoff was completely changed as well. But before we get to all that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel. So make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. There are a lot of different games that we have to get into from this crazy weekend, but before we get to all that, I do want to say, this is something I've been saying all season long. It's something I was saying during the offseason. The 12-team college football playoff has made the college football season that much better. I mean, think about all the games today, all of the crazy upsets, all of the crazy games that had playoff-like feels. This was all because of the 12-team playoff. BYU Arizona State, this game wouldn't have had these kind of implications with the 4-team playoff. Texas A&M Auburn, no way. Florida Ole Miss, I don't think so. Because there are 12 teams that can make the college football playoff, and at this point in the season, if you're ranked probably inside the top 20, you're still alive in the hunt, so all of these games still mean a ton. Back when we had the 4-team playoff, at this point in the season, these games really only meant a lot if you were ranked maybe inside the top 8, maybe inside the top 10 if you had a lot of chaos in front of you. But because we have so many more teams that are alive, and because of the automatic bids with conference championships, the amount of teams that are still fighting for a playoff spot at this point in the season, we're actually getting more playoff games. I know the playoff starts next month, only 12 teams can make it, but there were a number of games today where they were technically playoff games. For a lot of these teams, with the loss, their playoff chances were completely shot. So although we're getting that 12-team playoff, the amount of games with added importance has significantly increased because of the expanded playoff, and I absolutely love it. We'll start with what was the most anticipated game of the weekend in number 2 Ohio State and number 5 Indiana. Now, Indiana actually jumped out to a 7-0 lead, and they were actually winning at the end of the first quarter, but Ohio State outscored the Hoosiers 38-8 the rest of the way, and this was a dominating effort on both sides of the ball from the Buckeyes. Now, Ohio State just confirmed that they are probably the first or the second best team in all of college football, and Indiana, this was their first major test of playing a really good opponent, and yeah, they let everyone down. Now, I'm really interested to see where they're going to fall when it comes to the next batch of playoff rankings. Again, they're 10-1 on the season. This was their first loss, but the first time they had a chance of playing a really good opponent, they got blown out and they looked terrible. So I'm interested to see how far Indiana falls. Penn State was on upset watch as they escaped with a 1-point victory on the road at Minnesota. Now, this was a back and forth game, and it looked like Minnesota was actually going to pull it off and they were going to pull off the upset. Now, this loss would have been detrimental for Penn State had they actually lost. I talked about this in my video last week, but with Penn State's remaining schedule, if they went out, they're going to secure a spot in the college football playoff. With a loss, they might have still been inside the top 12, but if they would have lost to Minnesota, that would have been a really ugly loss that honestly could have potentially eliminated the Nittany Lions from the playoffs. But luckily for them, they hung on and they're still alive. Another highly anticipated matchup was number 6 Notre Dame taking on number 19 Army. Now, me personally, I was really looking forward to this matchup because I really wanted to see how Army would fare when playing a really good opponent. They were undefeated, they weren't getting enough love by the playoff committee, but that's because Army hadn't played a good team up until this point. Well, they had their opportunity, and they blew it. Notre Dame absolutely embarrassed Army. They won 49-14, and yeah, it looked like Army, there might be a reason you were undefeated entering this game. Now, the most shocking upset of the entire weekend, that's got to be Oklahoma dismantling Alabama 24-3. There were a lot of crazy stats about this Alabama loss. I think it's like their biggest loss to an unranked opponent since like 1998. Again, I saw this on Twitter. I don't have the exact stat, but it was something along those lines. But Alabama, they looked terrible. Oklahoma was a 14-point underdog. Their season was pretty much a wash, and they dominated the Tide after the first quarter. Now, for Alabama, they were ranked number 7 coming into this game, but they just suffered their third loss, so I'm very, very interested to see what what the committee does with the Tide after this loss. Now, it would make sense for them to drop out of the top 12 and be eliminated from the playoff contention, but this is Alabama we're talking about. This is the SEC, so I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow sneak their way into the top 12 by the end of the year. Another pretty massive upset was Florida taking down number 9 Ole Miss 24-17. Now, for Ole Miss, just like Alabama, pretty much win out and you're going to secure a playoff spot. But with their third loss on the season, it's really tough to see Ole Miss being one of the final 12 teams at the end of the year. This was an absolutely brutal loss for Ole Miss, but like what I just mentioned with Alabama, you can never rule out an SEC team when it comes to the College Football Playoff Committee. Things would have gotten really interesting if Boise State would have lost this game. They survived, beating Wyoming by only 4 points. Now, when I say survived, Wyoming was 2-8 entering this game. They're one of the worst teams in all of college football, and Boise State was on upset watch. Now, the thing that's going to be really interesting for Boise State, again, this is something I've talked about in previous weeks, they just haven't looked all that great, probably over the last month now. I mean, last week they didn't look great. Today, especially, they didn't look great at all. But yet, Boise State, if they win out, they're in the driver's seat to not only securing a playoff bid, they're in the driver's seat to secure a top 4 bid. I mean, this team is on the verge of getting a first-round bye, and I don't think Boise State is all that good of a team. I mean, if you were to match them up against all 11 teams ranked in front of them, I don't think Boise State would be anything less than a 14-point underdog, possibly more. So the fact that this Boise State team has the chance and is likely going to finish with one of those byes is absolutely insane to me. It's crazy. Now, sure, they could slip up next week. They could slip up in the Mountain West title game. Maybe a Big 12 team leaps them over and is ranked higher than them at the end of the year. But as of right now, Boise State is looking like they're in control to secure one of those byes. And boy, that would be terrible, because again, I don't think Boise State is that great of a team, especially the way they've been playing these last couple of weeks. Now, the craziest game of the entire weekend was definitely number 21 Arizona State taking down number 14 BYU. If you guys missed the end of this game, pause this video, go look up the highlights, look up the final minute of the game, because it was absolute anarchy. I don't know what Arizona State was doing. I thought the play calling was atrocious. I can't blame the student section for storming the field when they thought the game was over, but what a win for Arizona State. And now they're in the driver's seat to potentially reach the Big 12 title game and make the college football playoff. As of right now, it looks like if Arizona State and Iowa State both win next weekend, those are the 2 teams that are going to be playing in the Big 12 title game. Now, I'm very interested to see how high ASU jumps in the next batch of college football playoff rankings. I mean, there were a number of teams that lost in front of them, so Arizona State might move up to, I don't know, 16, maybe 15, and I think that's where things are going to get really interesting between whoever wins the Big 12 and whoever wins the Mountain West, which is probably going to be Boise State, because if Boise State stays at 12, or maybe they drop a spot or two and Arizona State's right behind them, there is a chance that Arizona State, wait a second, now that I'm saying this out loud, this actually seems kind of insane. If Arizona State can just win these next 2 games, and if Boise State kind of struggles but they win their next couple of games, there is a scenario out there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that Arizona State can win the Big 12, they could finish the season ranked higher than Boise State, and my Arizona State Sun Devils would not only be playoff bound, they would have a first round bye. I didn't think about this up until right now. It didn't really register with me because I just assumed they were ranked so far below Boise State, but there is a crazy scenario in which that can happen, and I'm here for it. Well, apparently Kansas wants to keep playing spoiler. This was their 3rd consecutive ranked victory. They took down number 16 Colorado, dominating them, winning by 16 points. Now, this is going to be really interesting for the Big 12 title game, because Colorado, if they just would have won out, they would have been in the Big 12 title game. But like I just mentioned with Arizona State and Iowa State, if they win next week, those 2 teams are in the Big 12 title game, and Colorado, they're going to be out. So Colorado does still have a chance if they win next week, and Arizona State and if Iowa State lose, they could be in. Maybe they can reach the college football playoff that way, but this was an absolutely brutal loss for Colorado. Losing to Kansas, now I know Kansas has had a couple of big wins recently. This was still a team that was 4-6 entering the week. Colorado should have taken care of business, and yeah, of course this comes days after I post that video on my channel talking about Colorado, about how I was wrong on them and how they're a potential playoff team and how I gave them the flowers. So Colorado fans, I apologize. I'm the one that jinxed you guys this weekend. Oh yeah, I mentioned Iowa State when talking about a couple of Big 12 teams. Well, the reason they're still alive is because they escaped with a 3-point victory on the road at Utah. It wasn't looking good. They were going back and forth with the Utes. They were actually trailing in this game with about 4 minutes left, but they went down. They scored a touchdown with a minute and a half left. They pull out the victory. Now, despite them being ranked 22, they are in the driver's seat to reach the Big 12 title game, and if they win the Big 12, they're going to secure an automatic bid. So the Cyclones, they're still alive in the playoff discussion. Yeah, so I'm editing the video right now. I don't have my microphone, so if the audio sounds different, I'm using my MacBook audio, not my main microphone, because there is another game that we need to add to the list of absolute chaos. College football Saturday just got that much crazier because number 15 Texas A&M just fell to Auburn in 4 overtimes, losing 43-41. Now, this is another game that is going to completely shake up the college football playoff rankings. Texas A&M, they were ranked number 15. They're probably going to fall, I don't know, 4, 5, maybe 6 spots, but this also makes the SEC that much more interesting. Entering the game, Texas A&M was one of only 2 SEC teams with 1 loss in conference play. Now, the Aggies join Georgia and Tennessee as the other teams that have 2 conference losses. Now, I don't know what all the crazy scenarios are. I don't know what that's looking like, but considering Texas A&M plays Texas next week, if I were to guess, I think the Aggies, they're not going to be playing in the SEC title game anymore. Now, all of a sudden, that opens up a spot for another SEC team. Again, I don't know the tiebreakers, I don't know who's going to get in that game, but it gives teams like Georgia and Tennessee a chance to not only improve their resume, but potentially secure a first-round bye. So Texas A&M, their playoff chances took a massive hit. And honestly, after this loss, based on where they fall, their chances of reaching the college football playoff might have been just completely vaporized. Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, this was the craziest weekend of the college football season. So what do you guys think the top 12 is going to look like? How do you think the college football playoff got shaken up because of all the upsets from today? Whatever your thoughts are on all the crazy games and the college football playoff moving forward, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm, and it helps share the video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.